everyone, you're watching Crypto Masters, where masters of the game give us a guided tour of the entire crypto ecosystem. I'm Vinita Chatterjee, and like always, I give you a guided tour of the world of Metaverse. And today we are extremely happy to have none other than a young hustler who has joined us from the world of Metaverse. He's young, he's dynamic, he's very shy, and he calls himself Bucks. Yes, Mr. Bucks Khurana, who is the founder of Stealth Mode Crypto Ecosystem. Welcome, Bucks. Welcome to the show.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
So it's like Bucks meets Binny, not Bugs Bunny.
Absolutely. I've heard this so many times throughout my childhood, Bugs Bunny, because my name is very similar. But
okay.
Yeah.
So when Bucks meets Vinny, what are we two going to hustle about this Metaverse ecosystem?
That's a very interesting question. But when it comes to the Metaverse, the whole industry is a hustle right now. We're so early on in the industry. Everybody is trying to get that first spot. Everybody's trying to get that first mover advantage. Everybody wants to be number one. And when you say hustle, it's definitely a hustle right now for the industry. You're absolutely right.
Okay, so tell me something about the world of Metaverse. Why is there so much of buzz in the world of Metaverse?
Well, the first Metaverse that at least people of my generation were a part of was a game called Second Life. It was a game that was released very, very long ago, probably in the year 2009 or 10 or something like that. And basically, Second Life was an ecosystem where you could literally live a second life.
Okay.
You could be part of that game and you could have a second life in the game. You had your own virtual avatar, you had your own friends, you could meet other people in that Metaverse. And this, with the boom of cryptocurrency, has created a sort of ecosystem where we can actually own assets. We can actually live in a decentralized world. And that is what the power of the Metaverse is. Okay. Now, when it comes to why the Metaverse has so much hype, it just solves so many problems that we're facing right now.
Okay.
With the upcoming pandemic, we've seen that work from home has taken a huge boom, right?
Right.
Metaverse kind of solves the problem of Zoom fatigue, which was a huge problem that people were facing. People are sick of Zoom videos.
Exactly.
Now, creating a really good alternative to that is really important. Mm-hmm. The video gaming industry is going to get completely impacted by the Metaverse. A lot of industries are going to get completely disrupted by the Metaverse, which is why there's such a boom. Also with Facebook rebranding to Meta and all the major brands like getting into the Metaverse, there's a huge competition of who becomes number one.
Yes. At the moment, what do you think is this number one race in the Metaverse?
Well, it's very difficult to comment on what is happening because most of them are trade secrets. So a very interesting question is the Metaverse going to be a virtual reality or an augmented reality?
Okay.
Is the Metaverse going to be a part of our own world and we're going to see things through our phone, or is the Metaverse going to be a separate world?
Okay.
Now, my opinion is that the Metaverse is going to be a mixture of both. We're going to have interoperable Metaverses.
Okay.
Now, when I say interoperable, it means that you can transfer assets from one Metaverse to another. Let's say, for example, I am playing a video game. I'm playing PUBG.
Right.
Now, I have a character in PUBG. Abhi, I want to take this character in PUBG and transfer it to a different game, let's say GTA.
Right.
Right? This is not possible. Mm-hmm. But with the evolution of NFTs, with the evolution of cryptocurrency, this has become possible. This is called interoperability, which is a problem that cryptocurrency has solved.
Would you like to elaborate on this?
Absolutely. So, again, let's say I'm playing a video game and I play two video games. I play PUBG and Fortnite.
Right.
Now, I have to create my own character in Fortnite, and whatever stats I've gained in Fortnite, I don't have that in PUBG.
Right.
But what if I could transfer my stats from Fortnite to PUBG? What if I could transfer my skins, whatever I have bought? You know, in video games, you buy very expensive skins, right? What if you could transfer these skins from one video game to another? This is called interoperability, and that is the power of blockchain. You can have interoperable metaverses. So let's say Facebook creates one metaverse, which is a virtual reality, and Nike creates another metaverse, which is an augmented reality.
Right.
You can have an interoperable metaverse, which means that my assets in the Facebook metaverse, I can transfer to the Nike metaverse.
Okay.
Just like we have multiple social medias, right? Right? So we can transfer things basically from one metaverse to another. So we have different social medias for different uses. I use LinkedIn for my business work. I use Instagram to have a life. I use WhatsApp for different things. Now, that's what I see is going to happen with the Metaverse as well.
Okay. So what is the difference between virtual reality and augmented reality?
If you search for the word Metaverse on Google or how to access the Metaverse, you'll probably see somebody wearing an interesting
VR
a VR headset
yes.
with like two things on the hand. That's called virtual reality. A virtual reality is a world which is not the real world. It is a different world. For example, when you're playing PUBG, you're in a different world altogether.
Correct.
Now, what if you could have a completely immersive experience? What if you can't see anything of the real world? You're completely in the virtual world. This is called a virtual reality. Now, recently long ago, a game called Pokemon Go had come out.
Right.
Where you could see Pokemons from the Pokemon world in our own world.
Okay.
This is called augmented reality, where you're augmenting the reality that you live in.
Okay.
So that is the difference between a virtual reality and an augmented reality. Now, when it comes to the metaverse, there are many companies trying to create a virtual reality metaverse, and there are many companies trying to create an augmented reality metaverse.
What would be the difference in the utilities of both?
So in a virtual reality metaverse, you are basically in a different place. For example, let's say you want to do work from home.
True.
Right? A very interesting way of doing work from home, and I think Gymshark had created their own work from home mechanism in the metaverse.
Right.
So let's say we are all sitting at a table from different parts of the world.
Yeah.
This is possible using a virtual reality metaverse.
Wow. So
Right?
let's say if I want to travel to the Himalayas and somebody is in the beach, we can both
Absolutely.
work from different remote parts of the world
100%, and this
at
is-
the same platform on the metaverse.
Absolutely. And this is one of the prime advantages of the metaverse, that it solves the problem of human disconnect.
Right.
It solves the problem that humans are not close to each other.
Right.
Right. But when it comes to augmented reality, you are bringing assets from different worlds into our own world. For example, Pokemons. For example, collectibles. But for example, Google Glass is an
Right.
example of augmented reality, where things that are not a part of the human reality, you can see them.
Okay.
So there are lots of utilities, for example, video games,
Yeah.
but we are still yet to see as to how this moves forward, how this evolves.
Okay. Now tell me, what is the role of metaverse in inspiring today's education?
Now, because of the pandemic, a lot of our education went online, right? I personally was a college student at the time, and I also had to attend online classes.
True.
Now, because we had to so drastically move from offline to online, there were a lot of problems. There were students who were not really attending
And there were
classes.
a lot of mental health issues also.
There were a lot of mental health issues, and students were not getting that college experience. Where you
Right.
can interact with one
Yeah.
another.
The human experience.
The human experience,
Right,
correct.
right.
Now, this problem is solved with the metaverse.
Okay.
Let's say you can wear a VR headset and attend college, meet your friends, party with them, play video games with them in the metaverse.
Okay.
That solves the problem of Zoom fatigue. Basically, we're talking about Zoom fatigue, right? Where
Right.
people are sick of looking at one computer screen. Another example of education. Let's say I'm a student in a rural village in India, and I want to attend like a premier institute such as Harvard.
Yes.
Now, currently, the ways to do it are very difficult. I'll have to
Yes.
get an incredibly large scholarship. I'll have to afford a
There are
flight
visa
ticket.
issues
There are
nowadays,
Visa issues,
yes.
all sorts of problems,
Correct,
right?
correct.
But what if Harvard themselves were to launch a program in the metaverse?
Okay.
So, right now, for example, all the students in my class are students who live in Mumbai.
Right.
This does not need to be the case when it comes to online education.
True.
You can learn from people in different cultures. You can learn from people in different countries. You can completely change your mindset. And this is again possible with the metaverse.
There can
So
be a diverse ecosystem, right?
there will be a diverse ecosystem. For example, when we play online video games, most of the people we interact with are not people from our own city.
True.
So a lot of my friends, for example, who play a lot of online video games, they've learned a lot about different cultures just by interacting with people in video games. And this is only going to take a boost when it comes to the metaverse. So as you asked about education, I feel that the education industry is going to be completely disrupted.
I feel it'll be completely revamped,
It will
right?
completely be revamped. You're absolutely right.
So Bugs, tell me your journey in the world of metaverse. How did you start in the world of metaverse?
So just like most people, when I was a teenager, I was very into video games, right? And technically, if you think about it, a video game is a kind of a metaverse. And I've been intrigued by the concept of metaverse. Now, luckily for me, I've been born in one of the world's oldest crypto native families. I technically have like a family business when it comes to crypto. So I've been having these discussions about crypto. I've been having these discussions of the metaverse since I was like 16 years old.
Great.
Imagine a 16-year-old on a dining table discussing crypto and metaverse.
I wish I could do that in my time.
Absolutely. I'm truly blessed with that.
Yeah.
So because of this, the whole concept of metaverse, the whole concept of decentralization, the whole concept of NFTs is very native to me. And which is why my stealth mode metaverse startup has a very intense metaverse play.
Okay.
And because of this, I've gained the experience where I can see what is going to happen in the future of the metaverse. I can at least give some ideas, or I can at least think about what the future of the metaverse will look like.
Okay. And why did you choose metaverse to start up with?
Well, that's a very interesting question. But think about this. Every startup who wants to have an insane growth trajectory needs to find something where they have a first mover advantage.
Correct.
Let's say when we had the internet bubble of 1990s, Amazon...
The Web 1.
The Web 1, yes. Amazon got a huge advantage just because they were the first, right? Obviously, they did a lot of work and they had a huge
But Amazon came in
leadership.
Web 2, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So okay, correct. Web 2.
Yeah.
So they had a huge advantage which is called the first mover advantage.
Right.
So with my background coming from the cryptocurrency family, and with the Metaverse being the next big thing, it's pretty obvious that I will also do a Metaverse play at some point, right? So that's how my whole thing in the Metaverse has started.
Great. So Bugs, tell me, what are the latest projects you're working on in the world of Metaverse?
That's actually a very good question. So, I've worked with a few luxury brands launching their metaverse stores, launching their metaverse clothing lines, etc. But other than that, I was part of a company called NFT Labs,
Okay.
where they were the partners of the Global Sports Summit. The Global Sports Summit is the world's largest sports summit in the metaverse. So,
Okay.
imagine an entire sports summit with CXOs from all over the world interested in sports, CXOs of sports companies all over the world attending in the metaverse.
Okay.
So now we had our booths there. We had to prepare the booths. We had to do all sorts of things to help grow our brand, right?
Right.
So this was a large project that we did inside the metaverse.
Great,
This
great.
was a really interesting thing that we did in the metaverse. Other than that, as I said, I've worked with a few brands, helped them launch their metaverse clothing lines, etc. And even my startup has a huge metaverse play. So
Okay.
what I believe is that creating your own metaverse might not be the best idea at the moment, because there are so many big players who are
They're the big
entering.
sharks and the whales.
The
of
big sharks and the
industry.
whales of the industry are
Yes.
entering the metaverse.
Yes.
If, let's say, Facebook is putting billions of dollars, or companies are putting billions of dollars into the metaverse, it does not make sense for me as a smaller entrepreneur to enter the metaverse. However, I believe that the opportunities lie in creating on the metaverse.
Okay.
With our current creator economy boom,
Okay.
we can literally create on top of the metaverse. Think of the metaverse as a platform
Okay.
where you can create on top of it.
Okay.
So that's where my startup has its own metaverse play.
It's basically you're using Metaverse as a platform.
Correct.
And you're creating your own reality, utility spaces in the Metaverse,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
So would you like to share something, maybe give us a sneak preview of what's going on?
Absolutely. So, are you aware of the concept called cultural icons?
Well, that sounds like something interesting. Would you like to elaborate?
100%. This is something I'm very passionate about. So, cultural icons are a set of icons that represent a generation, a particular community and a particular generation.
Okay.
Let's say when we talk of Bollywood, the first thing that comes to our mind is Sholay. The first thing that comes to our mind is Amitabh Bachchan.
The Big B.
The Big B.
The Shahenshah.
Absolutely. So, these are cultural icons that represent Bollywood.
Right.
Right now, Web3 does not have cultural icons.
Okay.
The closest thing to cultural icons that Web3 has are the apes, the bored apes.
Right.
Or those NFT lines which look like apes.
Correct, correct.
However, the problem with these apes is...
The
first of all-
CryptoKitties are also there.
Correct, but they're not cultural icons. Like when you think of crypto, you're not thinking of ape. You're not thinking of CryptoKitties. Right? So what we're creating is a sort of icon where when you think of crypto, you're thinking of what I'm creating.
Are you thinking of creating a Sophia for the Metaverse, if I'm not wrong?
100%. You got the trade secret, but absolutely, something like that. So Sophia, for the viewers, is AI-based robot who is actually a citizen of Saudi Arabia.
Right.
So that whole concept of having AI-based citizens in the metaverse makes a lot of sense.
Right.
The people you interact with in the metaverse don't actually need to be real people. They don't actually need to have real-world identities.
Right,
They
right.
could just be artificial intelligences.
Right. Today, maximum content that we are consuming is on the digital space. So creating cultural icons actually seems like need of the hour.
100%. Because cultural icons not only grow themselves, but they grow the platform as a whole.
Okay.
So right now, our Web3 adoption is not that high.
Okay.
And we want that through our cultural icons, we want people to be following the cultural icons for the icon,
Okay.
not for Web3. And
Okay.
we want that when people follow the cultural icon, the Web3 paradigm grows as a whole.
Actually.
Right?
True.
So I've been an evangelist of Web3 since 2016, right? Since when I first got into crypto.
Wow.
And I've seen the industry take its growth. I've seen how it's penetrated the markets of India. And we want to create an ecosystem which allows the industry to grow at a much faster rate.
Wow.
And the apes kind of did that.
Indeed.
The apes kind of did that. The bored apes kind of did that. And we want to
Absolutely.
create our much better utility version of that.
You want to create much more iconic characters.
Much more iconic characters. When
Wonderful.
people think of Web3, we want them to think of our characters. That we've created.
Amazing. So these days, a lot of news media is hyping about the concept of Metaverse DAOs. So what are Metaverse DAOs and what is the significance?
So a DAO is a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization.
Okay.
Now it sounds very technically complex,
Very techie,
and I'm
huh?
sure the users are here.
We just want it very simplified.
Yeah, we want it simplified. So
Yeah.
essentially, let's say, so there are 4 of us in this room. We want to come up with a way to vote on something. Probably we want to vote on what shoes you're wearing.
Okay.
Right? Now, one way of doing it is a simple election, a simple ballot system. But the problem with the ballot system is that we have some central authority who is counting the votes.
So there is a lot of manipulation.
There is a lot of manipulation.
Correct.
The central authority can be corrupt, etc., etc. Now, with a DAO, it's a decentralized autonomous organization. So there is no central authority that is voting it. The central authority is essentially a smart contract that is taking the vote.
Okay.
Right? And a smart contract cannot be manipulated once it's
Of
written.
course.
That's the whole definition of a smart contract.
True, true.
Right? So a DAO is basically a collection of individuals who are voting on something.
Okay.
Right? So when you come to Metaverse DAOs, it's basically people who are voting on things in the Metaverse. For example, we have the Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure that they have created a DAO where you can vote on the utility of the NFT. You can vote on what is done with the funds that the NFT has collected, etc. The community wallet of the NFT, you can vote on that utility.
Okay.
So this is an example of what a DAO does. You can vote on a certain activity. There are other forms of investment DAOs. For example, 10 people come together and they want to make certain investments. So they all pool in some money.
Right.
And then they all vote, take a vote. And with their common vote, they can choose on where they invest their money.
Okay.
So when you shift this to the metaverse paradigm, for example, what shoes you're wearing in the metaverse, what the cultural icon is doing in the day-to-day life of the metaverse, etc., or any decision related to the metaverse,
Or maybe the tokenomics.
or maybe the tokenomics, yeah. So any decision related to the metaverse, that's called a metaverse DAO.
Okay. And why do you think it is so important?
Well, how else would it's not important, it is necessary.
Okay.
How else would a group of people come up to a common decision?
Okay.
Now, we could probably create some sort of voting structure on a database. The problem with this is the database could be corrupt. The person who created the voting structure could be corrupt.
Correct.
Right? But with an open source DAO, basically open source means that the code is available to everyone.
Okay.
It's technically impossible for the voting to be manipulated.
Okay.
And for us to create a voting system with different countries, different legalities all over the world, it's very difficult.
So let's say if a new law can be implemented in the metaverse, I think a metaverse DAO would be very, very useful in that space, right?
100%, 100%. So the metaverse will have to have its own set of laws. There
Correct.
was a recent news where a woman entered the metaverse.
Yes.
And within like 2 minutes, she had to leave because it was like an extremely bad site for her.
Yes, yes,
Right? So the metaverse will have to have its own DAOs.
Yes.
So if you could come up with a governing body of the metaverse, which is not a single individual or not a single person, but it's a governing set of people, they can have their own DAO, which comes up with the rules of the metaverse.
So basically it can create a democratic ecosystem in the metaverse.
100%. And that's the power of crypto. That's the power of Web3. Everything is democratized.
So where do you see the adoption of metaverse in India in the coming few years?
So that's a very interesting question. And this is something that all the big brands need to be worried about. So India is majorly comprised of tier 2 and tier 3 cities.
Correct.
Let's say tier 1 cities map on their metaverse adoption to whatever a Western country is doing. However, getting metaverse adoption into a tier 2 or tier 3 city is not going to be an easy task.
Right.
We're not going to we might, but it'll be very difficult for us to get VR headsets to every single household in a tier 2 or tier 3 city.
Or maybe around that time there would be better devices that can
100%.
connect and jot the tier 2 and tier 3 cities.
Exactly.
Right.
So what I believe is going to happen is that the big brands or the brands who are investing billions into the metaverse are going to create some sort of hardware technology, some sort of software technology that includes people from tier 2 and tier 3
Correct.
cities, which makes it much easier for India to adopt as well.
Correct.
Because India has a huge population. And the Indian population can contribute to a large amount of metaverse revenue.
Okay.
And it's not as if the big brands are going to miss out on this.
Correct, correct.
Right? So the big brands will definitely create some new hardware, some new innovation that we have not yet seen. Everything right now is under the wrap. So we are expecting to see some sort of like breathtaking technology that enables people from tier 2 and tier 3 cities to enter the metaverse.
So you think the metaverse can create greater financial inclusion for countries like India?
100%. I'll give you an example. So one of our team members works in Nigeria. And for me to coordinate with him with the different time zones and all that is not that easy. And I cannot have a face-to-face interaction with him. I cannot see his body language. All I'm hearing is his audio on a Zoom call.
Right.
Right? But with the metaverse, he could be sitting with my team. Right? And this will cause better financial opportunities for third world countries as well. Because if a global startup or a global company wants to hire talent, now they have the option of hiring talent from other countries. And we've already seen this with the work from home, where big companies are entering third world countries just to get work done at a lower cost. And with the metaverse, this is going to take a huge boom. So 100% we will see the economy of third world countries definitely flourishing when it comes to the metaverse.
Amazing. So tell me, since you have been associated with the world of fashion and technology, how is fashion integrating itself into the metaverse?
So this is a very interesting part of the metaverse. Now, the clothes that I wear in the metaverse versus the clothes that I wear in the real world don't need to be the same.
Okay.
Because in the real world, I care about how it looks. It's a physical thing. It has to have a shape, etc.
Correct.
But in the metaverse, it can be anything.
Right.
It can be a huge triangle that is like all over my body, 10 feet tall, etc. Right? It can
You
be
can create
anything.
wacky fashion there.
You can create anything. And that has allowed the fashion brands to create their wildest innovations as day-to-day clothes in the metaverse.
Okay.
So imagine day-to-day walking in these like very fancy Met Gala type clothes. That is what's going to happen in the metaverse.
Okay.
And fashion brands and luxury brands are investing a lot of money and making a lot of money when it comes to entering the metaverse.
Okay.
So that's basically how.
So along with wacky fashion, can there be fashion for utility as well in the metaverse?
100%. And the most common utility right now is hype, like where I am associated, where I feel an ownership with the company.
Okay.
Other than that, there are lots of different forms of utility, such as community, such as all sorts of utility. And that makes a lot of sense. Now, my shoes in the real world are only shoes. 2 years later, I'm going to throw them.
Right.
But in the metaverse, my shoes are an NFT, which gives me access to all different sort of utilities. Depends on how it's created.
So sustainable fashion can also get a great headway into the metaverse, right?
100%. You're absolutely right. And when we think of fashion in the metaverse, it's completely different from the paradigm of fashion in the real world. Fashion, and this is what people don't understand. You don't have to wear shoes in the metaverse. Anything in the metaverse can be your wildest imagination.
Okay.
When I give you a gift in the metaverse, it can be literally anything. And
Right.
when it comes to sustainability, definitely the metaverse will have a lot of impact.
So how does metaverse impact the day-to-day life of an individual?
So when it comes to adoption of the metaverse, when it comes to my day-to-day life, I don't see people, or I see people living as much in the real world as in the metaverse.
Yes.
A recent study showed that the youth are spending more than 9 hours a day on their phone, on social media, right?
Yes.
And this is only going to increase with time. Only going to increase when the technology becomes more immersive, more addictive. People are just going to be on their devices. And yes, the metaverse is going to become a part of everybody's day-to-day life. When I go to office, I won't have to actually physically go to an office anymore. I'll have to take on a VR headset, put on the gloves, and enter in the metaverse. That makes so much sense. That makes life so much more convenient.
Yes.
So 100% the metaverse is going to become part of everybody's day-to-day life.
How does metaverse impact the youth of today's generation?
So as I said, the youth are spending almost 9 hours a day on their cell phones, on their devices. So this is only going to translate into the metaverse. Gen Z was the first generation that grew up with technology, that grew up looking at screens.
True.
We are going to see generations that grow up with the metaverse.
Even from a little child growing up and everybody is like immersed into the world of technology today.
Correct. And we're going to see little children who are immersed into the metaverse, wearing VR headsets. Imagine that.
My God.
And the metaverse is going to solve a lot of problems that the youth faces. For example, education, quality education is going to be much more easily accessible when it comes to the metaverse. Getting jobs, getting internships. Because right now in Mumbai, I can only apply for internships in Mumbai.
Right.
But when it comes to the metaverse, I can apply for an internship in any remote corner
You have
of the
the
world.
entire global fraternity.
Exactly.
Okay.
And companies that are more forward thinking are the ones who will enter the metaverse first. So it will definitely be much easier. A lot of the youth's problems will be solved. Also social life, gaming, entertainment are all going to be solved by the metaverse because entertainment is going to become much more immersive.
Amazing.
Right?
Amazing.
So this is how the metaverse is just going to completely change the life of the youth, especially when we see new generations who are growing up with the metaverse.
Since you mentioned entertainment, you've worked with movies yourself, right? Where they have launched themselves in the metaverse.
Forms of traditional movies are running obsolete. People are no longer going to movie theaters to watch movies. If I'm watching a movie in the metaverse, it is so much more immersive. I can interact with the movie. I can be a character in the movie.
It's going to be like movie is all around you. The scenes are happening all around you.
Exactly.
It's going to be a reality.
You're going to be a part of the movie. Imagine, what's your favorite movie, for example?
Bahubali, for example.
Bahubali. What if you were a part of Bahubali? What if you were one of the characters of Bahubali?
It's like you have time traveled.
Absolutely.
Right.
And this is possible only with the metaverse.
Wow.
So that is how the metaverse is going to evolve, and that's how the metaverse is going to change everyone's day-to-day lives.
Amazing. Well, that was quite an immersive experience that you discussed, and thank you so much, Bugs, for coming
It's
here.
an absolute pleasure. Thank you
and
so much
sharing
for
your
having me.
wonderful experience. We wish you wholehearted success.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much, viewers, for coming and joining us and for having this immersive experience from the world of Metaverse. I'm Vinita Chatterjee signing off from the world of Crypto Masters. Keep watching Crypto Masters to get a guided tour of the world of blockchain, crypto, Metaverse, and Web3 ecosystem.